Yeah, so this event that I just attended in Santa Monica, Los Angeles, was a really powerful event. There is a Hollywood stunt woman and stunt director by the name of Kimberly Shannon Murphy. And this woman has written a book about her journey growing up and being sexually abused by her grandfather. She talks about her journey of discovery of this trauma, understanding how it's shaped her life, including a successful career doing what she did, but then realizing that, there's this sort of background in her life and this abuse that went on through the whole family. Just learning about her story, how she's done her work healing from it, writing the book that she has. And part of her story has been to connect with Gabor. And from my understanding, Gabor actually recommended that she does psychedelic assisted therapy. And apparently, doing that work, that's when she uncovered these repressed memories. And so it was fascinating because you had Gabor and her on stage. The event was about childhood trauma, whether it's sexual or not, and they opened the floor to participants to ask questions. And pretty much most of the time, the participants would share their own history of trauma, and then Gabor would analyze and help them reframe and understand, how it may have influenced them. And many of the participants actually ended up coming on stage and seeing, that sort of participation and Gabor's mastery with, making his compassionate inquiries. So as many know, Gabor has his own sort of trademarked approach to addressing trauma, and it's called compassionate inquiry. It's something that people can train in. There's a short version and a long version. It's something that I would like to participate in eventually when I have the time for. But it's about asking the right questions. And it's amazing how he asks the right questions to get the individual to where they need to go, to help them disarm the defenses and have that insight that's required to do this work of healing. And for me, I would say the biggest take home point, which really hit me hard, was that it's not, let's say, if we bring the example of sexual abuse, but it could be any abuse, it's not the sexual abuse itself that's the first trauma. The first trauma is disconnection from the caregivers. Now, if the perpetrator is your parent, it's a bit more complex because they're your primary caregivers, and that complicates it. But let's say in the case of Kimberly, whose grandfather was abusing her, and he would ask this question to everyone that sort of opened up. They're like, who did you speak to? He asked them, who did you speak to when this happened? And everyone said no one. So what does that mean? That means that the child didn't have someone that they trust enough to open up about their trauma. And so that disconnection is the initial trauma. And I found that to be very profound, because in every single case, when the abuse happened, the child was just left alone and didn't feel safe enough to approach anyone. Or let's say in the case of Kimberly, if she did approach someone like her mother, she was dismissed. And so that is the first trauma, is just not having, those safeguards in place and not having someone to go to when you're in this difficult situation.